everyone. Welcome to the Super Feeler podcast. My name is Lori, and I'm super excited to be chatting today with Anita. They're going to be telling us a little bit about their story, going through treatment, all sorts of things. And Anita's also in BC, which is exciting for me because it feels like, you know, have some of the same experiences navigating our healthcare system that is very difficult to navigate. So, Anita, why don't I pass over to you? You can tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into it.
Cool. Yeah. Well, like Laura said, I went to treatment earlier this year at Heartwood at the BC Women's and Children's Hospital, and I was discharged in June. So I think I'm around like a 6-month mark now of post-treatment. And there's like my friends and I joke, there's pre-Heartwood Anita and post-Heartwood Anita. I definitely am a different person than I was 6 months ago. But yeah, I'm 35. I was diagnosed with depression when I was 18, and I wasn't diagnosed with BPD till I was 30. So there was a whole lifespan there where it's like, depression doesn't feel right. Like, yeah, I get bummed.
This can't be it.
Yeah, there is more going on here. And
did you know what BPD was when you were diagnosed with it?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I don't think I'd even ever heard of it. At all. Obviously, that awesome name of borderline personality disorder.
It's a mess. You're like, what does this even mean? Like,
that made me real excited.
Yeah, totally. You're like, this is the most confusing diagnosis I've ever received. At least depression, everybody knows what that is. How did you end up getting that diagnosis?
Oh boy. So my psychiatrist gave it to me, and in my very small frame of mind at that point in time, he gave me like a 20 question questionnaire, and from that diagnosed me with BPD. But according to my mom, who has a far better memory than I do, she's like my memory storage. She says that it was talked about before that point. So it was kind of, brought up at that point. And that was during a really, really tumultuous time. And I actually ended up kind of discharging myself because I didn't trust that psychiatrist. So I sort of needed confirmation from other people. So that was one of the things at Heartwood. I was like, is there a way we can confirm that BPD is like, because I'm not questioning, I'm pretty sure it's accurate. Yeah. But it would be nice to have it from somebody that I actually trust.
For sure. And so obviously you Googled it when you got the diagnosis, I'm assuming.
I don't think so. I was honestly, I know. I think I was really trusting what was going on from the medical staff and from my counselor.
Right.
Which may not have been the best idea. I didn't know a lot. I didn't know much about it at all, besides DBT was the one thing that could cure you, and nothing else was cure, in a very loose form here. That was it. I didn't know anything. I was just scared. I kind of assumed because of my family history, the mental health on my mom's side goes so far back. It was depression, manic depression, bipolar. So BPD to me was just another version of that.
Yeah, which is very easy to feel that way because it's such a confusing name, but also the up and downs of it are very easy to confuse with bipolar, even though they are different, but it's confusing.
Yeah, the way it was explained to me was that bipolar was you would have mood swings that ups and downs that would last days, and BPD was it would change within hours.
Yeah, minutes, hours, seconds. Yeah, totally.
So I think this is the first time in my life I've actually thought, man, bipolar would actually be a lot sweeter.
At least you've got some sort of status quo. You're like, well, I mean, I know I'll get back there eventually. I don't know much. I've never lived with bipolar. I had a boyfriend at one point who lived with bipolar, and it was not pleasant at the time. It does seem easier just in terms of day to day, not being up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. That would be kind of nice to just have consistency for a hot moment.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's a really interesting perspective because I've known one bipolar person and we weren't really very close. We just went to school together. So that's a really interesting perspective to hear that from somebody who has BPD.
It was hard. Yeah. At least as a partner of a person that had untreated bipolar. So that was the other thing is treated bipolar and untreated bipolar, I have no doubt are very different to live with.
Indeed.
Yes, as with most things. Okay, so you got a diagnosis at 30. What led up to that diagnosis? You were seeing a psychiatrist. Obviously, something was happening in your life.
Oh, yeah. I had just gotten out of a 5-year relationship, and I was always terrified of my first breakup. Even before I was with anybody long term, I was like, man, that is not going to be a good time. Like, I am not going to be, am I going to be able to cope? Am I going to be stable? Like, how am I going to be able to handle it? But I'd always told my partner too, like, no matter what happens, no matter how things go down, I will never be the person that says, if you leave me, I'll do this and this and this to myself. Like, I would never in a million years do that. I'm fortunate enough, like, to be able to say that I can do that. But it ended really badly. Sort of all my worst fears sort of came true. I never thought I'd be enough for someone as a female because I grew up in a very, very small town that was so homophobic. Even though my parents are totally accepting, I was just never thought I would be enough for somebody because I'm a woman or my body's a woman. So when she left, I found out she was already kind of hanging out with a guy, and then a lot of things happened in a very short period of time for her, and great for her. It was sort of really rough on me at the time, and I put two and two together, and it was happening when we were still kind of hanging out, I think. But
Yeah.
yeah, that when I found that out, that's when I started
Right.
really getting into substances heavily.
Interesting.
Yeah, like
Yeah, I mean, breakups are often the first moment where people realize that they have BPD or that triggers the series of events that leads them to that discovery. So, just real quick question. I know you live in like a really small town. Did this person also live in a was she also in that small area with you? So you had to see her on a regular basis?
you would think so, but we did a great job of avoiding each other, either intentionally or
Okay.
unintentionally.
Right. Either way, it worked out. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but there
Cool.
was always that fear. It's like, I'm going to the grocery
Yeah.
store. Am I going to see that person? Like, that's
Totally.
100% small town stuff. Nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. But I knew I was suicidal, so I admitted myself like I have in the past because
Hmm.
I'm, again, able to do that. I had two suicide attempts in my life, and I never want to go to that place again. Even the second time, I actually went to the hospital first, and a week later, like, they sent me home. They sent me
Of
home
course
being
they
like, "Yeah,
did.
come back if you're actually going to do something." And then a week later, I
Huh?
was in there.
Yeah. Try
Awesome.
harder next time. We've all heard that.
Yeah,
Thanks. Thanks, doctor. Appreciate
yeah.
that.
You're really
God.
sending the wrong message. Like, you tell me to come in if
A
I'm going to
hun-
do something. I'm coming in now because I know where my brain is going.
Yep.
Awesome.
But here's the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is unfortunately a very common experience, which is very, very sad. So, yeah, so you admitted yourself. And then, sorry, you said that you had started using substances. Was that before you admitted yourself or after?
Both. Both. I've been using substances since 18. Weed and alcohol have been my two best friends throughout my early adult life. But it was never at a point where I was out of control. This was out of
Right.
control. It was like, it was embarrassing because, again, small town, and people
Hmm.
were actually like more worried about me than they were judging me.
Right.
But that was,
And still, weed and alcohol was like the primary issue.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. But I tried to get help because I'm like, I don't, I know that this is just breakup, and breakups are hard and whatever, regardless of what's going on in them. Like, I can't do this on my own. But I was in the self-admitted to the psych ward, and after a week, yeah, he was like, "Oh, you have BPD. People with BPD do better outside the hospital. So peace out, discharge. See you later."
Yep.
And I'm like, but I'm still not okay.
Yeah. You're like, okay, but then what do I get outside of the hospital? Is
Yes,
there like an
exactly.
option
Yeah.
or did they give you any hope of like here's your discharge plan?
They're like, follow up with your counselor, and we'll get you into DBT in like 6 months to a year. And I
Classic.
had
Yeah,
to
love.
phone them to be like, I'm pretty sure I'm still on the waiting list. Like, oh yeah, we forgot about you.
Yeah, truth. Oh my
So
god. And was this far away from where you I don't know the geography well. Is that like is the local hospital far away where you had to go inpatient and like was DBT going to have to be far away?
the hospital that I was at was like an hour away.
Okay.
And because of COVID, DBT ended up
Right.
being online. So it worked out really well in a
Nice.
sense.
Yeah.
But part of
Pros and
that,
cons.
yeah, yeah. A part of that story that like really, really sticks out in my mind as a key part to my story is like I said, I discharged myself because I'm like, dude's not going to come see me before I leave.
Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from. I don't want to be here. I would much rather be a lot of different places than this place. It is not my favorite place. Where else can I go? What else can I do? I just want to be safe. And I was literally sitting on the curb after discharging myself and waiting for my friend to pick me up. She picked me up and we're driving home, and I'm talking to my mom on the phone being like, what do we do? Like, what's next? I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. What do I do? And my mom started crying and said, Anita, I just don't know what to do anymore. And it was like a switch flipped in me of like, I can't put my mom through this. I can't do this to my mom. Like, I can't ever consider this ever again. I can't ever let it get to this point. And obviously I can't rely on the system. Buck up.
Yeah.
What else there is literally no other choice. So I didn't figure it out. Like, I didn't figure it out at that point. It was just, we got to figure something out. So I might have been at that point. I know I stopped drinking for a week just to be like, okay,
like cold turkey?
Yeah.
Which is also horrifying.
Yeah.
Like, that's deadly.
I probably was still smoking weed.
But still, I mean, the alcohol withdrawals can kill you, right? Like,
yeah,
what was that like?
I don't understand how I haven't been more affected by that. Like, even at Heartwood too, I wasn't physically, to be fair, I actually had stopped for a bit before Heartwood, but I've never really had alcohol withdrawal. Like, in my mind, I'm like, I've been drinking every day. It's at least one drink, if not more. How am I not suffering more? Like,
I mean, I'm glad you weren't. Don't get me wrong. Like, that's great. It's just like it can be so horrible for people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm glad that wasn't your experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely fortunate in that way. But it was just like, after that, it was just like 5 years of struggling. And that barrier of substance abuse, not just use, but like abuse, had been broken. So it was too easy. I was on that other side. I was maybe not as out of control in public, I guess, but I was still drinking every day. And it was very much like everything revolved around that. As soon as I'm done work, I'm going to drink. And then I've had like 2 solid pints, not just glasses. Like, so now I can't do anything else in my day, and then start all over again next day. And I was also working at a brewery.
What were you doing for work at that time? Yeah. Oh, at a brewery. No.
Yeah.
Well, that can't be easy.
No, I sourced it out pretty good. Like, I want to find somewhere where I can swear, make inappropriate jokes, just like be myself.
Well,
and probably drink.
You're literally, I was going to say, you're around alcohol all the time. So it's not like it's weird to be drinking.
Oh my God.
So it's actually kind of a perfect place to work if you want to be drinking.
Not just the brewery, but this whole town. It's a ski town. So there's actually like a whole thing with ski towns where a lot of people come here trying to find themselves. And we all really get into drinking and using a lot of different substances, but it's okay unless you don't wake up and go to work the next day. Everything's okay.
Right. It's like super normalized. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. So there's actually a movie called Paradise Paradox, and it's about a ski town in the States, but it touches on the fact that suicide rates in ski towns are far higher than other towns because of the sheer size of the population being people that are like, I'm going to go out west and just discover myself, or from another country.
Totally. Oh yeah, I mean, so many of my friends are from from England particularly, and like they all end up in Whistler somehow. They all end up in Sun Peaks somehow. Regardless of what happens, they're gonna be on a mountain doing something, living out of a car with someone else. Like, it's always.
That's the same living situation here. It's so similar.
Truly.
Like, the running joke is like you have 6 Australians living in one closet or something like that, especially with the way that housing
you joke, but like sometimes I feel like especially I had a friend in Whistler who met a girl and they moved into the same car together. It was like a big we're moving in together into my car, but then they found out that they snored, so they had to break up, and it turned into this whole thing, and it was just like, this is the most ridiculous situation. Like, you can't make this up, but I believe that this is true. Like, I know this is true. And there's literally
yeah. Oh, can I just say that is so gay?
You're like, this is the U-hauling situation of everyone.
Yeah, but really, I'm not in love with you because you snore. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was really convenient when I could sell my car, and now I need a new one. But anyways,
classic,
so yeah,
classic.
so super normalized in ski towns,
Well, yeah,
and also
to
like, yeah,
a detriment. It is really, really bad. But I feel like I know
hmm
I'm not the only one that's been to treatment. And I'm starting to get to a point where I want to talk about it more. Before I was like, I don't want people to know because, like, I do eventually want people to know because I don't give a fuck. Can I swear?
100%. Oh my god,
Fucking A.
if
All
we
right.
couldn't if we couldn't swear, I couldn't do this show because I can't help myself. So go for it.
Fantastic. So even at Heartwood, I had already decided that eventually, when I felt comfortable with it, once I was somewhat stabilized back home, I wanted to be able to tell people because I've always been like that with my mental health. Like I don't care. I'll tell people I have BPD. I'll tell people what's happened to me in hospitals so that they don't have to go or at least be shocked by that experience. They're probably still going to have to go through it, unfortunately. I'm trying to do that with the treatment thing, and it's different. I was listening to another podcast for school the other day. It was a social work one, and they were talking about like the contrast of mental health stigma and substance use stigma. And mental health is like way more accepted now, which is great. We've broken a lot of barriers there, but the substance use is 110% still stigmatized.
Yeah, because people think it's like a personal choice, right? Like just don't drink. Why is that? Like it's not that hard. Yeah.
Yeah, totally, totally. For me, my substance use was always a coping mechanism and a symptom of greater things, and I knew that. I've been trying to get help for years, screaming into the void. And when last year, kind of this time, I had gotten burnout from work. I took a month off of work. I've never taken that much time off before, ever. And I knew I was drinking up too much for like a year. I hadn't really said it out loud to anyone, but I knew for like a year that I was starting to accept it, not willing to do anything about it yet. And I went to my family doctor and I was like, I need to go somewhere. Like, we all know my mental health is an issue. And the Zoom DBT thing didn't really take. And like, I need to go somewhere. My family in the past have gone places. My grandmother had shock therapy. Like, I need more. Send me somewhere. And my family doctor responded with like, do you mean rehab? And I didn't even flinch. It's like, fuck it, sure. If that's what it takes, if that's what we got to do to actually get the help that I need, yeah,
Yeah.
sure, let's do it.
I'll take anything at this point. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and while I was waiting to get into Heartwood, still I went to the hospital again because I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I'm sitting at home, I can barely feed myself. It was bad. I've never been that bad. Like, I'm stubborn as shit, so I still wasn't like willing to self-harm, but when I'm not well, I binge eat. When I'm really not well, I don't eat. I
Hmm.
lost a lot of weight because of it. Like, I was eating every day, but not much.
Yeah, like
And
not actually sustaining your health at all.
yeah, so I went to the hospital and was like, yeah, send me somewhere. They're like, well, you might as well wait for Heartwood because you present well. So we can send you somewhere and guaranteed you're going to be back here within a week. Because,
Right. They're gonna say like you're not sick enough.
yeah,
Go home.
yeah. On the hilarious side, I always go with somebody at the hospital now so that nobody can screw me around
Huh?
and discount me and invalidate me. So I bring
Totally.
a really, really awesome friend who's part of the kind of social work community here. So she knows the ins and outs, and
Yeah.
I know the ins and outs because I've experienced it. And we had this, what do you call it, like student doctor, intern? Poor
Yeah.
guy. He didn't, he just like kept saying, why don't you try this? I think he left and came back to the room like 3 times, and he was not successful every time. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to the psych ward. That does nothing. Come back with
Hmm.
something else. And he's like, but this was the first time I actually said I had plans, I was going to do something, just because
Right.
I was like, caution to the wind, I don't care anymore, just give me the help, even though I
Yeah.
don't trust
Totally.
the system at all. And he's but
You like as much as I wish this wasn't the case. Sometimes you got to play the system. When I go to the hospital, if I'm going for a physical health issue, like my husband and I agree beforehand what we're going to say about my mental health. because we know
Wow.
full well that if I say I have any sort of mental health issue, I'm going to be discredited and sent home. So like, it's the same thing, right? Like, you need to know what you have to say to get what you need, because the system is not set up to actually help when you ask for it if you don't
Huh.
know the game. It's interesting.
That might have happened to me today.
Oh, no way. Yeah,
Maybe,
it
maybe
can
not.
happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just interpretation, and just because I want something to happen doesn't mean it's actually going to happen. But anyway, it's a whole nother thing. But yeah, like I still ended up going home from the hospital then, but that was just January. I got into Heartwood in March, and again, it was like a huge revelation of, well, fuck the system. It doesn't do anything for me. Why did I even think I could go into the hospital and beg for help? Because like that's not going to work. That doesn't do anything. I need to rely on my community because people around me have been saying, let me know if you need anything. So I decided my biggest issue is isolation. It always has been. So I decided to make a meal train for myself, but it had nothing to do with meals. It was just who's going to hang out with Anita today.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
it took off so much stress too, because my friends could choose when they want, like what days work for them, what time worked for them. I didn't have to do any work. Everybody just signed up on their own willy nilly. And it was the best thing. Those 2 weeks changed my life before Heartwood. I started, well, my one friend took me snowshoeing, another friend took me to pottery, another friend took me to boxing. Like I was doing all this stuff. I was socially engaging, I was being active, I was getting outside. That's like my trifecta of good
Yeah.
coping mechanisms. And I started working out again, and I was a huge athlete jock as a teenager. That was my identity, and I lost it because I got too into substances. That was my
Right. Yeah.
priority. Yeah, so I started like even just 5 minutes of cardio, then 10 minutes of cardio, then 15, and I got into really good shape, and I was like, hey, I can start doing the things I love again. Because there's always a Fernie factor. People are in ridiculous shape here. So they say, let's go hike a mountain. You're like, is it the easy trail? Yeah, it's totally the easy trail. I was like, it's not. It's not the easy
Yeah.
trail.
Like 7 hours later, you're like,
Yeah,
okay, never mind.
yeah. And everybody else is just like, oh yeah, easy, so easy. You know, how are you doing back there with my
Literally.
asthma?
Yeah.
So it was,
Seriously.
yeah, that point really changed everything. I was
Well,
what, but
people love you. Like it, like,
yeah,
because when you get that isolated and you get into your own head, you're like, everybody would be better off if I was dead. Nobody loves me. I just want to be alone. And like, it gets to this like black and white of, you know, I thought people loved me, but clearly they don't, or I'm a burden. Like, maybe I'm just projecting, but like,
nope.
if people are like literally signing up to take you out to stuff, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Because you're
yeah,
never going
no,
to have the motivation to do that on your own.
no, and like I do now, but only because of that small 2 week span of my life. And
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about. That's like I mean, I know that's my BPD brain. I know that's my negative
exactly.
default setting, and I know that voice isn't true, but it's so hard to invalidate it sometimes
Hmm.
when there are facts right in front of you. Like just a few weeks ago, it might have last week or the week before, I didn't see anyone from Sunday to Thursday. Like I was inside because I'm on crutches right now too.
Oh no.
Yeah, and only recently just got a car 1 or 2 weeks ago. So I was like
Okay.
having to ask friends to take me to the grocery store.
Right.
I can't even get out for a walk or anything. But yeah, there was like that 4 day period, and by the you know Wednesday, Thursday, my brain's starting to be like, your friends don't really love you because they're not. You're like, no,
Hmm.
my friends have lives. They're busy. They're literally not even in town.
And
I'm
I
so
haven't
much.
asked, right? Like, if you had asked somebody, hey, you need to take me out to go get groceries, I'm sure they would have been like, yeah, 100%. When do you want to go? But like, we don't ask because we are not in the right headspace to ask. And then it just like cycles and we're like, everybody hates me. It's like, no, bitch, it's your own fault. In this context.
Yeah, it's as my heartwork counselor, we're like, okay, Anita, we're gonna check the facts.
Yeah, exactly. Let's wise mind this
Damn,
situation,
hate
check the
checking the facts.
facts.
They're always right.
I know, it's the worst.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the other thing too. Is like my rational brain is a really good rational brain. So if I can like And I'm really particular about things. I really believe in logic and reason and doing things with purpose. And I can't deny that. If things don't add up, I can't. That voice doesn't have the volume anymore because it's just not true. So yeah, like by the time I got to Heartwood, I was already not drinking except for events because I hadn't learned how to not drink at
Right.
events. My body
Yeah.
would just go to the bar.
Well, it's so socially ingrained. Like, it's just
Yeah.
is what you do. Yeah.
And it's what everyone does here. Like, if you're not drinking, it's like, it's starting to get more accepted now, way more accepted now. But in the past, it's very actually from that January to March period where I was waiting to get into Hartwood. I remember being at a bar and ordering a non-alc, and the kid beside me, who like I don't know, 10 years younger, whatever, he's like, "Why are you drinking?" And I just ignored him and talked about something else. And then an hour later, when I ordered another non-alc, the bastard was there again.
Like, come
Again,
on.
why are you drinking? Like, I'm pregnant, Nakota. And he was so excited for me. He was so genuinely excited. I know. I'm like, buddy, come on, buddy.
Baby.
I mean, I really appreciate that you are so progressive that you think strong, independent lesbian women can have
Yeah, just
kids on
get
their own
pregnant
without a
willy
partner.
nilly.
I really felt bad letting him down.
Well, that's hilarious. But it's true. Like, so I have never had challenges with alcohol, but like I have drank obviously in the past. During COVID, I kind of was like, I just was over it.
Yeah.
But it's still hard, even though I don't have a substance use issue, I still find it hard to go to a bar or to go to a like nice restaurant and not get a cocktail. Now there's at least good mocktail menus in a lot of places, so you can kind of feel like you're a part of the crew. But it's like it takes a long time to get used to being the one that's not drinking and have people be like, no, just have one drink, just have one drink. And you're like, can you stop forcing this on me? This is ridiculous.
Yeah. Do I have to drop the S word and tell you I'm sober?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't want to have to do that. Like, don't make me go there. Shit, okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Why do we have to go there? Why do we?
Yeah, just don't
Why do you?
push other things on people that they don't want.
Yeah, yeah.
Period. It's not that hard.
Boundaries, you know. And I'm fortunate that I have like the greatest group of friends. I'm so friggin' lucky to have them, and they would for a while, like after Heartwood, I had to only hang out with for a couple of weeks at least people that wouldn't drink around me or
Right.
smoke, and I hated asking that. I I hated it, but one of my friends said she was at my halfway point meeting, Zoom meeting with like my counselor and whoever my mom, but my mom's in Ontario, so I had to have my like small town friends slash family. They're family. We're all family. She said, Anita, it's so much easier for us not to drink than it is for you to ask us. Like, we don't care. It's not a big
Totally.
deal. I'm so supported by them in every way. She felt so bad having a drink. It was actually that same night the kid asked me why I wasn't drinking. She was so apologetic. I'm like, I didn't. This was before Heartwood, so I didn't have those rules set in place. Like, you had one drink, and
Yeah. You're
I
not
told you,
smashed. It's fine.
yeah, like I told you, it's okay. You're allowed to do your own things and be your own person. So without that group of, I'm going to say family, because we all moved to town. None of us have our family in town, really. So that is our event. Without them, I don't know where I would be, and my family. It's like I didn't know what I was going to talk about on this podcast because I have always put so much emphasis on the fact that I have good parents from like a middle class socioeconomic background. I'm so privileged, and they got me like weekly counseling after my first attempt, like within the first year that I was diagnosed with depression, and like they made it work. You know, there was another girl in my town. She wasn't my neighbor. She lived next to my neighbor, so it was like very, very close. She was a year younger. There were so many parallels between us. It's scary. We both loved hockey. I'm pretty sure she was gay as well. Like, I obviously can't say that for sure.
Yeah.
I got out. I got out of the town. I that was always a must do. She ended up committing suicide, and it's not lost on me that could have been me. If it wasn't for the fact that the only difference was we grew up in separate houses. That's it. That is it. And we both heard the same homophobic stuff growing up, like horrible stuff. I remember hearing there was one lesbian couple in town and they weren't there long.
Yeah, I bet.
I was like, I don't know. I don't remember how old. I say anywhere between 8 and 12. And this woman was working at the convenience store and she was talking to somebody who was in front of me in line. Like I was second in line. And she was talking about the lesbian couple and saying she was going to run them out of town. She was going to get their kids taken away from them. And I knew this woman abused her daughter. Yeah. And I remember I was shaking going up to the cash because it was never a question in my mind. I don't remember a time where I thought I was straight. Like I always knew. And I don't remember a time where suicide wasn't an option because of just like, everyone's telling me I'm shit, that I'm like a second-class citizen. Even this horrible human being is saying that I'm shit. So it's really hard not to believe that. So hard. And this breaks my parents' heart to like, I've been telling my mom a lot of stories lately about what I remember from growing up. And she said, why didn't you talk to me? Like, why didn't you could have talked to us. And I had to seriously think about that because I didn't have a good answer for her. It wasn't an option to me. It was never even considered, even though I knew my parents were always accepting. That was
Did they know you were gay? Like from a young age?
Yeah, apparently my mom and dad talked about it.
Okay.
When I was
you just
growing
didn't
up.
feel comfortable. Right. You just weren't, ready. But like the possibility of rejection, like even if there's like a minuscule chance, I can't even imagine like the fear of like, what if I was wrong and they actually are assholes, you know?
Yeah, I think it was more like just scared for my safety. And
fair.
their safety. And like even my siblings, who I knew would be fine as well, but they were also kids and things get slipped. And my parents owned a small business attached to the house. So I was very concerned that there would be financial ramifications because I knew that they would stick up for me.
Totally.
I knew that like they would never, if somebody was a bigot, they were like, "Okay, well, get out. We don't care.
Right.
You need your money." But I didn't want to. I think the thing was I didn't want to put it on anyone else. It was already so big and scary on my own. And I really like, it's so clear to me now in the last few months how substances came into play because I was bullied relentlessly too. Like called a dyke and a butch and all this stuff from like grade 3. So it was really, really ingrained. That self-hatred was always there. And I just was like, I'm just going to get out of here. I'm going to play hockey. I'm going to be the best hockey player. I'm going to get a scholarship. I'm going to get the fuck out of this town and screw the rest of you. Yeah, the hilarious thing is that I was so anti-substances as a teenager. I was like, I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to smoke. I have things to do. I have places to be.
Yeah.
You can do that and waste your life. And I was definitely judgmental. Ironic.
Yeah. Everybody's judgmental. If they tell you they're not, they're wrong. Like, it just is what it is.
It is a favorite
and you never know
pastime.
what honestly, truly, I kind of love being judgy. I'm not supposed to, but like I do love it. But the breakup was the turnaround point, right? Is what you said earlier. Like you had drank, but it wasn't a problem until this breakup.
Oh yeah, I see.
Yeah,
it was like the dam was broke. Yeah, for sure.
So you grew up in Fernie, right?
No, I grew up in Ontario.
Okay, so then when did you end up back in Fernie?
I moved out here when I was 20, so 15 years ago.
Oh, so you were being bullied and all of this shit was happening in Toronto or in Ontario?
Yeah, so I'm from like the Ottawa Valley, which is an hour and a half north of Ottawa. And the town I grew up in is less than 1,000 people. And the whole
so not
area.
So different than where you are now, like in terms of climate or like people.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
always love small towns. I hate cities. My mental health goes to shit. And I was like, how
Hmm.
is my gay ass gonna find a small town?
Yeah, true that. There's gotta be one. I don't know what it is, but there has to be one.
Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't end up in Nelson. I know I ended up in Fernie, but that area, like, I will always have pride to say I'm not an Ottawa Valley kid. It's just
Hmm.
I as much as I've said all these things, I still have that, but that area is so like so same-sex marriage came into it was legal in Canada 2006 and I
Like
was
that.
16.
Yeah.
So I was debating this in high school, in civics class, in the hallways, everywhere.
Hmm.
And I would hear people like one kid in class was like, "Oh, if we let the gays get married, what's next? Snakes." And then I'd hear my MP compare homosexuals to pedophiles and say, this, you can't. You always try to. Cheryl Galanda's a backbencher. She's still in power. It's really
Mm.
sad. So you want to be mad at what she says, but she also doesn't make sense. It's really weird.
You're like, if there was like logic or an argument here, maybe I would
Yeah,
listen to you, but there's nothing. You got
yeah. It's like
nothing.
first of all, the prejudice against people and their sexual orientation, I'm pretty sure it was in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms before 2006. Like, I'm pretty sure that was
Yeah.
like the 80s. So I don't know where she's come from on that one. Plus, like, fucking criminal code, Cheryl. It's illegal to be a pedophile. It's
Yeah,
illegal
yeah,
to
it's
be.
not illegal to be
Yeah.
gay. Like it's so crazy to think that because I'm 31, you're 35. Yeah, I remember when gay marriage was legalized. But like it just seems like that couldn't have possibly happened within our lifetime because it's so like literally what's the big deal? Just let people marry who they want to marry. Wild that was within our lifetime. And like
Yeah,
not just like within our lifetime, but like we were like coherent at that time.
yeah, no, I was like debating. I put it not my right to get married. I was debating for my right to exist as a human
Yeah.
being. And it was 50-50. It was not like, yeah, this is obvious. It
Yeah.
was, and I have a strong feeling it still is somewhere around 50-50. And that's when George Bush was in power too. So I had to listen to all these idiots
Yeah.
who are big fans of George Bush. And I was like, "Oh, can you guys just, like, the Ottawa Valley, you all should just move to the States. So
Yeah.
religious, but not like well educated. And I don't want to like talk smack about it too much because it really was. This is the dichotomy of my childhood. I look back, and before Hartwood, I would look back at my childhood and think like I had it all. My parents put me in competitive sports. We had a cottage passed down in the family. So we probably wouldn't be able to afford it otherwise. But
Right. Yeah.
a
Yeah.
cottage passed down in the family. So we're up there in summer. Like I water skied. We went on tent trailer vacations. My parents were very loving, involved, very supportive. My mom was always like, you can do anything a guy can do. I don't care what anyone tells you." And my granddad only put her in singing. She was pissed off. So she's like, "Whatever sport you want to do, I will put you in it."
Yeah.
That I painted it like such an idyllic childhood. And it was in a lot of ways. But I have very much suppressed how much I hated every single day.
Hmm.
Every single day. Like it was the suicide thing was always on my brain, and that self-hatred. It was just such a deep self-hatred. And I don't think anyone else knew that. Like there was really three forms of me in high school. It was super happy-go-lucky Anita that was like the leader, the one that's making everybody laugh, making everybody feel good about themselves, just confidence out my ass.
Hmm.
Like super sad, sensitive Anita, which could flip
Yeah.
like that because somebody said one thing that now I'm crying and now I can't control myself and I'm buck for the rest of the day. And then there was angry Anita that just couldn't let things go and was just like, probably because they were bigots.
Yeah. Some things you shouldn't let go, right? Like it's not you shouldn't let that go because they're trying to tell you that you are not a worthy human being for something that is A, not something you choose, and B, something that is totally fine.
Yeah.
It's not their
Yeah.
business.
Yeah, totally. So like it was such a dichotomy of I knew I was accepted and loved and I knew these things weren't okay because by the grace of whatever creator God there is, not that I necessarily believe in one, like I ended up with the parents that I have.
Yeah.
And like I've told my mom time and time again, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my parents. And
Yeah, it sounds
I
that way.
wouldn't have tried so hard if it wasn't for my parents. And my sister too, because my sister and I were really close growing up. And she dealt with, so I'm the younger sister, like 3 years younger. I was like the annoying, embarrassing younger sister, and she somehow didn't hate me.
Right.
And like that's who I came out to first. And so I'm super, super fortunate, but at the same time, like I'm only starting to acknowledge, like, yeah, you're privileged. You can acknowledge that you're privileged, but that does not take away from the shit you heard as a child. And
No. And childhood bullying fucks with people.
yeah,
The amount of people that I've talked to where like just bullying from either children, other children, family members, like churches, like that will never be like normal. You know what I mean? Like you, because you, everybody goes like, you're just a kid, you're just being bullied,
I
and it's like,
know.
no, like it,
My God.
that's not a thing. Like
Yep.
it's serious trauma.
Yeah, and I kept being told, like my mom knew it was a big deal, my dad knew it was a big deal. My parents actually talked about whether or not they were going to allow my outbursts when
Hmm.
at home, and they decided yes because they knew what I was dealing
Interesting.
with outside, and they knew I was probably gay. So
Yeah.
we're just going to let her have her little
Yeah. Let her do
freakouts.
her thing.
But
Yeah.
like I remember grade 6 was the worst year of my life. I mean, I don't know if I can say that anymore, but I'm sure my grade 6 self would be like, "Fuck you, that is so true." It was horrible. Horrible. I was a kid that would like I'd go home for lunch. I showed up to school late as possible. I got out of there as soon as possible. I wanted to spend as little time around these other kids who my mom was smart enough to explain to me didn't really have parents. And if they did, they were probably drunk. And like I'm obviously generalizing. I'm not saying that
Yeah.
everybody I
But
grew up
they weren't
sucks.
like around. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they weren't present for them in the way they needed them to be.
She would often not let me go over to some people's houses, one in particular. She's like, no, the parents there are drunk. I'm not gonna drink. What do you care? And I remember one time the parents were upstairs getting drunk and the kids were downstairs and they started getting into dad's bar that was down
Mm.
there. And I was peace out and I went home and I was like bragging to my mom.
Yeah. Like, look what I did.
See, I can make good choices. But that's the kind of place it was. All these other kids would come to school, and it was like Lord of the Flies of who can be the biggest bully and throw their weight around. There was such a hierarchy, and it was sports that saved me because it didn't matter what you thought about me. If I could pwn you on the field or on the ice, I demanded your respect, whether you wanted it or not. So that's why my athlete identity was so huge. It was
Mm-hmm.
confidence building. It gave me a sense of self. It was like the best version of me.
And a
And
community probably of other people.
oh my god, yeah, totally. I
Yeah.
was playing hockey in Ottawa for a couple of years, and that's like an hour and a half away. So I didn't have to hang out with all these small town, small minded
Right.
kids. I was with a group
City
of
folk.
girls. Yeah, people that are a little bit more worldly.
Yeah.
um, uh, and the thing with teams is like you always doesn't matter if you like everyone or not. You go through things that you're just gonna get closer. Like it's I don't want to compare it to war, but like you see people at their best and worst, and you all help each other out. So at the end of every season, I was like distraught because I
Mm-hmm.
was losing all my best friends. They were an hour and a half away. My parents aren't going to drive me an hour and a half. I don't blame them. They run me around for the next sport, which is soccer was in the valley. But um, I wonder if that had any influence on the abandonment BPD thing.
Hmm. Yeah, good.
I know. I have no idea. I have no idea. But that was just a guess. And but yeah, when my Heartwood counselor kind of made all this stuff obvious to me, like it was only a few months before before Heartwood, I started considering that I might have childhood trauma, like just considering it at all.
Mm,
And she's like, yeah, well, obviously, you had this. Of course, you're
yeah.
going to react the way you do. And I didn't even realize I felt unsafe my entire life until I was at Heartwood.
It's amazing that you felt so safe at Heartwood and were able to really like understand yourself and start this new journey. For the listeners, we're going to cut this episode into 2 parts. We've gone on for 2 hours here, so this is the end of episode 1. If you want to hear the rest of Anita's story, more about their experience at Heartwood, what Heartwood is, and why it was so impactful for them, as well as some interesting conversation about gender identity, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and you'll get notified when the next episode comes out on your podcast feed. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Superfeeler podcast. Today's episode was recorded on the unceded and traditional territory of the Matsqui and Sumas First Nations. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps me reach more listeners like you, and we're always looking for improving the podcast. Remember, you can always stay connected with me on social media. You can follow us. The show notes will have all of the details for Instagram profiles. If you want to support the podcast and help me continue to bring great content, please consider joining the Superfeeler community on Patreon. Your support really means the world to me, and there's a variety of different options for support, including some free ones. For all information about the Superfeelers Club, which is the peer support that we run, including upcoming events and resources, head over to Eventbrite or laurieedmondson.com for more information. And if you have a topic that you want me to cover or a guest you'd love to hear from, please send me the suggestions. Always happy to hear them. Until next time, keep on superfeeling and living authentically. This is Laurie signing off of the Superfeeler podcast.